Welcome to another episode of the Shine Spotlight webinar series. This is going to be a good one. Promise you, you're not going to feel like you've wasted any time, whether you're tuning in live or whether you watch this at a later time. My name is Josh Kiser. I am the Managing Director for Shine by Carrie Lewis, and I'm personally excited for this one as well. So our special guest who's here today, there's so much that we're going to get out of today, and it's because of her experience. This is a little bit like a buy one get three free sale. To me, that's the way I kind of liken it, or getting some bonus material when you sign up for something that you didn't know was going to be part of it. And it's just because of the multifaceted experiences that our special guest today has. She has experience behind the camera. She has experience in front of the camera. She's been on stage. She's done TV commercials. She's done print work. She's a speaker. Has director experience. Production management. She's done some writing. I mean, there's so much. So the wealth of knowledge that we're going to gain today is literally the sky's the limit. So I hope you have a pen and some paper, because I really have a feeling that you're going to need it. So without further ado, today's special guest, welcome Lynda Stein.
Hello everybody. Hello to my friends who are watching, and hello to all the AMTC old people that are coming back, not older. I mean, people who used to be with AMTC, welcome. It's so good to be back, and I'm so glad to be able to talk to all of you. Today's topic is well planned and planned to bless you and to take you to the next level of your art career. That is the goal here. How and where did my well-planned acting career go? And you can add to that, where did my well-planned any career go? Where did my well-planned life go? Where did my well-planned choices go? They just go away. What do we do when God throws a timeout? And we are all in this significant season where we have been forced to be in timeout. And as adults, we put kids in timeout, some of us do, and the kids don't like it, and then they settle down, they figure it out, and they move on. Well, I kind of feel like the whole world's in a timeout. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to start with a little bit of scripture. Proverbs 6:19 says, a man's heart plans his way, but the Lord diverts his steps. I loved that version. Diverts his steps. Okay, that means that I plan my way and God guides my steps. It could be steers, guides, all the different versions, but I love divert because it kind of fits with where we are right now with the pandemic going on. There are many unplanned things that happen in the course of our journey with the Lord. There are many unplanned things that happen even if we don't know the Lord. We get ready coming right out of high school and college with a plan. And then we get out and we think, like a horse at the gate, that we're going to get everything we planned. In the meantime, God has another time clock going. And that time clock gradually grows us to a place where we realize that our plans are not necessarily in sync with his plans. Back in when I was a young lady, I was in Genesis 37. There was a story that was told that I ended up being in that show, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, out of Genesis 37. Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat was about the Bible story of Joseph, who had this beautiful coat, and he was very highly favored of God and highly favored in his father's eyes. And he had about 6 or 8 brothers back behind him that were older than he was. He might have been the youngest or somewhere there. But he bragged about this coat. His dad gave him this coat, and he had a dream, and he shared his dream that all his brothers are going to serve him, and he got himself thrown out of the family. They took him out in the desert. They got tired of him bragging, and they threw him in a pit. Now, Joseph did not plan to be thrown in a pit. I can guarantee that. I don't think any of us plan to end up in the pit, a lion's den, without money when we need money. We don't plan on being homeless. We don't plan on not graduating from college. We don't plan on not getting to Hollywood. We don't plan that stuff. We don't always have say over it. We think we do, but we don't always have say. And we try and try and try and walk towards those goals. We set them high. And yet we don't always have a chance to really get to that goal. So anyway, Joseph's in this pit, and along comes a group of I think in the show we had them staged as guys with turbans, and they captured him out of, now this is out of the stage play, they captured him out of the pit and they took him along to Potiphar, and they sold him to Potiphar, which was the Pharaoh and the leader in Egypt at the time. He took him and he made a slave out of him. Joseph, once again, a person who had favor, had a chance to work his way up the slave hierarchy, and he made himself in charge of all the slaves in the household. And so he was doing pretty good. His brothers were gone. They had thrown him in a pit. They were gone. They were done with him. And he was in Potiphar's house. So it worked out pretty good. And he worked his way up. Now he's Potiphar. He's next to Potiphar almost. And Potiphar's wife catches sight of him. She sees him. She wants him. She thinks he's cute. He denies her the opportunity to be with him. And she gets mad and throws him under the bus, and he goes right back into prison. Now, did he plan on going to prison? No. Did he plan on getting thrown in the pit? No. Did he plan on having someone throw him under the bus when he was innocent? No. But there he was in prison. Now, Joseph still had all of this wonderful stuff going on inside of him. He wasn't necessarily ready to be famous or whatever it is he thought he was going to be when he had those dreams when he was a little boy, but he was still dreaming. And he was able to interpret dreams of all of the guys in prison, including the guards. Meanwhile, Potiphar had, the king at the time, or the Pharaoh at the time, had a dream that he could not solve. And somebody caught wind that Joseph in prison interpreted dreams. So they yanked him out of prison again. And here Joseph goes back before the king. And the king says, can you interpret these dreams? He interprets the dreams. It turns out that there is coming a famine in the land, a great harvest, and then a great famine. So Joseph says, the way I see it, is let's save up for the famine because it's coming afterwards. And then Joseph gets a new job. He gets the job of overseeing all that. So Joseph spends 7 years, 7 years of harvest, 7 years of famine. The famine starts, and Joseph is now right next to the king. He's overcome all of those obstacles, being thrown in the pit, being thrown under the bus, being thrown into jail, and now he's doing quite well. The king has put him in charge and given him a signet ring, which means that he's his best buddy. And along comes a group that only knew him when he was a child. And that group happened to be his family, because back home they were starving and they didn't know what to do. And so they decided to come to Egypt, to come to see the Pharaoh and try to get some food for their family. When Joseph sees them coming towards him, he starts to weep, but he pretends like he doesn't know them because they don't recognize him. And the rest of the story has to do with Joseph humbling himself that the people who threw him in the pit, his family, he was now going to feed. A significant story that changes Joseph's life and is so significant that it stays in the Bible, and we talk about it today. And someone made this wonderful show called Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, of which for me has a significant significance, as that was the show where somebody finally witnessed to me and shared the Lord with me. I'm a Jew. I was Joseph. I never planned on being an actress or being in church. And along came all these circumstances, very similar to Joseph's, maybe not being thrown in a pit. And I ended up getting saved. That was not my plan, nor was that my parents' plan, but I followed the direction. Now, this isn't a story about me being a Jew, but this is a story about what's going on right now in our culture. Our culture is struggling. Today on the news, I saw a little clip. I don't watch a lot of news, but I saw a little clip that in Orlando, they were getting mad and gathering in the streets and wanting their jobs back and wanting us to open up the country, and all sorts of things are going on. And yet people are struggling with their timeout right now. How long are we going to have timeout? Are we going to stay in timeout forever? It's crushing them, and they're getting impatient. How many people are impatient? I know a lot of us are impatient. I know I am. I'm stuck at home hours and hours by myself. But what is this really about? When we have unplanned timeouts and they come in, I'd say every 18 months or so, I've experienced unplanned timeouts. What do we do in that season where we're thrown against our will into a pit or a prison, or we're falsely accused of something and all of our privileges are taken away? Whether it's a career that we're working towards where we have favor with agents in the community, which I have had, whether it's you going after a job and someone comes along and throws you under the bus, you almost have that music job, you almost have that singing gig, and someone prettier or thinks they're prettier throws you under the bus and takes the job, and you go right back to where you were looking for work. What do you do? What are we supposed to do in those seasons? Well, one of the things that I know that I've done, and this is an obvious thing to all of us who have been faith-based or at least are looking for faith, is I pray. And my first prayer is usually, God, what's going on? And that prayer usually gets me to some comfort level. And then you have a few more God, what's going on that go on and 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 on until I get extremely frustrated, where everything has been taken from me that is comfortable. And I'm required to get on my knees because that's my only answer. God, please do something. And usually right after that, something changes. Something changes for me personally. Something doesn't always change around me, but I change. I change in my want, and I change in where I'm going and who I am. When I change who I am and what I want, then miraculously stuff starts coming towards me. So as I try to keep this very real with you guys, we're all sitting in our apartments. It's empty. We get to go to the grocery store once a week, maybe twice a week. And every time I go in that place, it's a little stranger. There are X's on the floors, there are arrows, and God help you if you don't follow those. The people who wear masks are mad if you're not wearing a mask. The people who wear gloves are touching everything. Nothing makes sense. There's no control. And yet the one thing that I know is in control is God. And I have zero control over my career. I was propelling forward in the community once again as an actress, and doing quite a bit of work actually locally here. They've been shooting several pilots down here. I don't talk about it on the internet. I don't talk about it at all. I just know that God was propelling my career forward, and all of a sudden I am now, by the way, we're shutting down the city. So my career that had momentum suddenly has no momentum, and 2 weeks later I'm sitting in my apartment. Okay, so now what, God? I've spent a long time, my plans, paying down some debt, getting new headshots, moving myself to the next level, talking to agents, getting stuff ready, and I'm going, and you just pulled the rug out from underneath me. What do you do with that? Well, there has never been a time in my career as a person and as an actress where I haven't stopped after being angry. And I'm just going to be real with you guys. I get pretty ticked off when this happens. I get so ticked off, I don't cry, I get a headache. And then when I get a headache, I know I'm supposed to go to the Lord because he won't leave me alone. He's got his thumb on me, and he's making me sit down and listen to him, or even release that stuff to him. All of it, all the anger, all the angst, all the plans. And I laid those plans down at the foot of the cross in my kitchen, which is behind me. Usually I end up praying somewhere in that little tiny kitchen behind me. And I go, God, I can't do this. I don't know what to do now. Please take this. And the Lord reminds me of that wonderful scripture, for I know the plans I have for you, not to harm you, but to prosper you and give you a hope and a future. And my future then begins to retool itself to what he had planned for me and what's more rightly tooled for who I am as an individual. So I am moving now away from my plans, which oftentimes are the same as God's, but they're just my version of how I want it to happen, to his plans where it's much easier. So my stubbornness gets let on the kitchen floor. My pride goes on the kitchen floor. My opinion goes on the kitchen floor. My angst, my anger, and all of that feeling of why is this happening on the kitchen floor at the foot of the cross. And I pick up all the new normals and I try to look to see what I can do with what he's now given me. And in some cases, like right now, there's not much to do, but there has turned out for me a lot to do. I've been doing a lot. So I began to pick out the new normals and I start to think of all those things that I've been waiting to do. For me, it was I needed desperately to fix all my video clips of all the work I've done. They needed to be updated. They needed to be changed. They needed to be thought through. I had the history, I had done the research, but I had no time to do it. So I started on that project. Then when that was done, I picked up a new way to light myself when I was videoing in my home studio here. I started researching online and using my time to really figure out how I can make myself better in my auditions. Then I started taking classes. Then I took 2 or 3 classes with agents. And pretty soon I'm using the time that I've been put in timeout where I have nothing to do, I think, into preparation. This is what we do when we're in timeout. We prepare. We prepare, we prepare, we prepare, because very soon we will be out of this and there will be those opportunities that'll be available to you because you submitted yourself completely to the Lord. You gave yourself completely over to him. You said, I can't do this, but you have a plan ahead of me. I believe in your word. Those plans are ahead. I'm going to walk towards them. And I'm going to believe that I'm getting ready for something that I cannot see. In the Bible, it says faith is a substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. I only like the first part of that scripture. That's from Hebrews 11:1, because the tag of that is, without faith, it's impossible to please God. That thing was hanging out there for the longest time. Without faith, it's impossible. So, okay, so what does that mean? First, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. I'm hoping for something to happen, but I can't see it. So, okay, I'm good with that. But it takes my faith also. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. I have to please God by giving it all to him. And if I'm not doing it fast enough, it seems to me that I end up in a timeout. Now, we're in a pandemic timeout. The whole world's in a timeout now. So none of us can say it's personal. And I think that's kind of comical if you think about it. I mean, God is not, like a lot of times when we're in the timeout, we start blaming everyone, blame our mom, blame our dad, blame our husband or wife, blame our kids, blame money. Someone spent, it's everybody's fault but ours. But here we are, guys, we're sitting in a timeout worldwide waiting for this to change. And my thought to me when I was doing this, okay, Stein, I usually call myself by my last name. What are you going to do with this time? Are you going to sit here and feel sorry for yourself and grieve and get mad? Are you going to sit on the couch and watch TV and wonder why you're not in those shows that you're watching? Are you wondering why you keep having the rug pulled out from under you? Or are you going to get up and do something with your time? There's plenty of resources on the internet. There's plenty of things to do. You've had all of these plans all these years and all of these projects sitting all around undone. Let's make a list. One of my friends came over that I was helping with unemployment from one of the jobs I do. And she said, wow, you have a list on your marker board. And I said, I sure do. And she laughed at me. She said, why are you making lists? I said, because that's the only way I will get through being in timeout. I am very much a doer, and I love to work, and I have to start preparing for when I'm not in timeout. And so my answer to all of you is, in this season that we're in right now, when God throws us a timeout, after we get over ourselves at the foot and we leave our little pile of stuff at the foot of the cross and it turns to dust, we absolutely have to begin to make that list of what we're going to do while we're waiting for the next thing to happen. Now, I'll give you an example, and I was sharing this with John and or Josh earlier. I was sharing it with him. I said there was a time when I had my job. I work at Walt Disney World, and so the whole world knows we're in furlough, but we had business flows, and sometimes we'll go for 2 or 3 weeks and not work. Also, auditions. A lot of times we have lots of auditions, and a lot of times we have 0 auditions, and it goes for a long period. These are little timeouts. One timeout from auditions and working at Disney, I was driving through a small little community in Orlando, and I stopped at a store that was a resale store just to kill time in my timeout. And I picked up a shirt I would never wear, but I kind of felt led to buy the shirt. 2 days later, I was cast as an extra in a commercial. And because I had that shirt on, I was bumped to principal for 2 more commercials following that week. So I went from making that little bit of money as an extra to a lot of money in 2 other commercials. So in my timeout, I was preparing, kind of blindly preparing, but preparing, and I ended up with a lot of work. So what do you do with your time? What are you doing with your time? I've got to ask, are you using it? Are you sitting on the couch? Are you learning a new skill? Are you coming up with some ideas to cook different dinners? Or what are you doing with your time? And my challenge for all of you guys is, and some of those of you who have seen me in class know, you guys have to go get what you want. And if you want something that's ahead of you and God pulls you back, He's pulling you back to stop you, so you'll listen to Him, so you'll know how to go get it. When Joseph was in prison, I'm sure he had a few chats with God about why he was there and what did I do wrong, and I didn't do anything wrong, and here I'm in prison, and Potiphar's wife threw me in prison, and blah, blah, blah. Oh, well, I'm here. I might as well make best of the time. As it turns out, he was developing his gifts of being able to interpret dreams. He was developing his gifts of being a servant. And when it was time to be this ultimate servant, he served the Pharaoh. And when he served Pharaoh, he was enough of a broken man to be able to receive his family who needed to be fed. His family needed to be fed. But here's the next level of that. Out of that line, I believe Jesus came out of that line. So God had a plan way back when Joseph had that stupid coat, and I'll just say stupid big colored coat that he bragged about, that Joseph was going to redeem his family and feed his family. And the family didn't know it. The dad didn't know it. But that was faith as a substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. If Joseph didn't have faith, he would not have excelled when he was a servant in Potiphar's kingdom, in his castle. He wouldn't have excelled when he was in prison, and he wouldn't have excelled when he was next to Potiphar and he saved and saved and saved for the famine season if he didn't have faith. And that's what we have to do during this time, you guys. We have to have faith. It's about faith. And it's hard. If it was easy, acting coach used to say this to me when I was taking I was involved in a comedy improv class, and I thought it was fairly easy to watch, and then I realized it wasn't. And he used to say, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. If it's easy, we'd all be doing this. Everyone who wanted to be an actor would do it. Now, I'll say one more thing about this. Your journey belongs to God. It doesn't belong to you. You walk your journey. You plan your journey, but the Bible scripture that we used earlier, a man's heart plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps, or diverts his steps, or pushes his steps. The Lord directs us. I wanted to be an actress in Hollywood, and by this time I would have been retired according to my plans. I would have had 5 kids and a great life and would have been an actress. I was going to work. I was going to go to Hollywood. This was my plan. At 24, which I did go, And I was going to be a movie star. They said 10 years. So by 34, I was going to really kind of start hitting it. I was going to work for a few years, find some handsome guy, get married, have a couple of kids, have a nice Jewish family with bar mitzvahs and all sorts of things that go with that. And instead, what happened is I got saved at 26. On my way to go to Hollywood, I got mono, had to come back home to the Midwest, heal, and I got saved. And then everything changed. I ended up moving to Florida. I ended up not getting married. There are no kids behind me, although I work with them. There are no kids. Nothing I planned, zero planned. The movie star stuff didn't happen, although I've worked quite a bit as an actress in commercials, and I've done episodics. I've done all sorts of things. But my plan was not to be where I am right now talking to you. I can guarantee that that was not my plan. And yet here I am. I'm so blessed. I'm so honored that I get to have moments with people to say, God has a plan for each of us. And along the way, he's going to use us. He's going to use us to bless others. He's going to build us up. He's going to help us find where he wants us. He's going to put us in productions that are amazing. And we're going to see his hand in almost everything we do. We get to give back to him through talking on days like this, when there's a pandemic and everybody's home, not doing anything. He's going to let me encourage you. So Josh, I don't know if you want to have any questions or comments or anything like that.
Yes, listen, I was busy over here. If you ever saw me looking down, it wasn't because I was like falling asleep. It's because I'm taking notes. It was so good. And I hope everybody else out there that's listening was doing the same. We have a question, and we had a couple comments. Jacqueline thanked you. She's on and listening, and Jacqueline thanked you for the comment about making the lists. You know, I think that speaks to so many of us, because sometimes as creatives, we're not always the most organized, you know, and sometimes it takes putting together lists and goal setting and doing all those things. It's very important. So I just wanted to point that out to you, that really spoke to Jacqueline. And we do have one question here. So Bill Johnston he wants to know if you can share a time in your life when trusting Christ was difficult. Like, we all have those moments where, you know, sometimes when things are good, it's easy to trust, right? Or even if it's, you know, this is a pretty big lull. I mean, we're in this is a pandemic, right? This is not the average downtime. So, you know, there's some people out there that I think Bill probably recognizes that are struggling with, you know, some ups and downs. Some of those downs are expected. Nobody expects their life to sort of like just float here at the top.
Right.
And I just wanted to know, is there possibly a time that you could, you know, maybe share when it was really hard?
Okay.
You know? You know, I mean, I can give you a second to think about that if you want.
I know. I can go right to it.
Okay, go ahead.
If you think about a rock, you take a rock and you throw it against the water and it skips. It goes boom, 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 boom until it eventually goes in the water. My life has gone up and down like that pretty much all along. And the most recent experience where I had to trust God, because you can't talk about this unless you've been through this. And I'm actually seasoned in waiting. In fact, I had somebody say to me, a very good friend said, Lynda, this will be easy for you because you've been through so much. So I will list the recent time. I went through a season where all of everything I knew, I was working as an actress. I was doing a tremendous amount of freelance work. I was traveling all over the country directing church programs, and these are church-related programs. This is before the churches got into as much theatrics and media as they did. I was one of these people that was used. And in a matter of 6 years, my fiance passed away, my father passed away, my grandfather passed away, 2 other relatives passed away. All the people who had been, they were much older than I was, were sponsoring me and sending me out, all either died, retired, some of the churches fell apart, and I was left basically standing in the middle of the field with a career that had been shaped for me by other people and God, and me being obedient, and there was nothing to do. I had no idea what I was going to do with myself, because the people who created the opportunities for me and all knew each other and they were connected were all gone. And so for about a couple of years, I was just wandering around. I was in the wilderness, dead in the middle of the wilderness, not dead, but in the wilderness. I picked up a book called Hind's Feet in High Places by Hannah Hurnard. And it's about a character that is in the wilderness. If anyone wants to know about that, it's Hind's Feet in High Places. And I was like this character, Hannah, in the wilderness. And I had no idea what was going to happen. And I literally did not. And how I managed it during that time, because all my friends were speeding by me with their life. So I had plenty of people to blame. We already went through all of that. And the crossroad I came to when all of that happened was when I was reading through the book of Job. There are a few things that I was doing while I was in the wilderness. One, I was walking my apartment, reading the scriptures out loud, because my heart was so grieved from all the loss. And that's the only way I knew how to bring comfort to my heart. And some of you are probably in that place right now where you don't know what's going to happen. And that brought comfort to me, walking the floors. I pulled my guitar out, and I'm not really a public guitar player. I'm kind of like the closet guitar player, but I brought out songs, and I learned to play songs that I could worship the Lord with in those midnight moments when I didn't know what to do and I didn't know if I was going to make it. And I don't mean me personally, but financially, career-wise, I couldn't go back to the Jewish culture. I had to kind of find my way in that dark place. And while I was in that dark wilderness, the Lord brought me comfort. And I came to a crossroad where I realized, I'll never forget, I don't remember the name of the scripture. I have it over there in my apartment still. But when Job prayed for his friends, everything changed. And that was a crossroad for me. And I started praying for my friends. And all of a sudden, I started going to a different church. And that church started to really bless me, and things started changing, and things started clicking, and the Lord brought together a brand new life for me out of me being thrown in the wilderness. And that was a long season. I don't think this pandemic will be as long as everyone thinks it will be. I think that once we get our motivation going, we'll figure it out. It's setting us back, but it's really not setting us back, because it's causing us to stop and rethink where we're going and what we're doing, which is also a good thing to do while you're sitting in the wilderness or in your apartment by yourself. Hope that answers the question.
No, yeah, that was great. That was great. We do have a couple more.
Okay.
So Maddie, she says, I've been trying to use this time to work on my stuff. She doesn't specify what that is, or what, she's an actor. But how do you as a woman get out of dream mode? And now I would say this first before you even answer that. I don't think, dream mode is, that's everybody.
Yeah.
But you as a woman, I don't know, she's specifically wants to know, I guess there's a difference between wanting to work on your stuff, but then how much is thinking it's just like a pipe dream, where I'm dreaming too much more than being practical, I guess, is what was the angle she's coming from.
Okay, so to answer your question, Maddie, I'm a combination of practical, needing structure, and creative, and I like need the structure, but I take off and go do creative stuff, and then I come back to the structure. I need that. I dreamed of being married. I dreamed of having kids. I had hoped that I would have all that. I dreamed of being an actress and being famous. And it wasn't so much the fame as it was the work. That was me. I was artsy. So I wanted just to have the opportunity to be an actress. I was really into that whole heady part of it. And God pretty much stripped me of that in those seasons where I was asking him why it wasn't happening. And I realized that it wasn't as important to do the dream as it was to be me in him. And he would lead me to his dreams for me. And that was a better connector than my dreams for me. My dreams for me were okay. And they were kind of part of what God wanted because they're placed in us. We have gifts and things like that. But my dreams for me were not like God's plans for me. And they actually tend to coincide almost every time. So I lay them down and I'm pathetic about it. I mean, I'm an actress, and my Jewish culture, we're all very dramatic. Now, I am not only speaking for me because some of them aren't, but there's a drama level that I have. And I'm like, pathetic God, I don't want to give up my dreams. And the Lord's like, just give them to me, please, so I can give them back. Blessed me. It's been amazing. It's been like, oh my gosh, that's better than what I planned. And so what's ahead is better than what you planned. You planned one thing and God has a better choice. And if you wait, he'll bring you to that choice. You can't make his choice for you happen. He has to make you walk towards that choice. And then he just gives it to you on the path. It's beautiful when it happens. Okay.
That's really good. And, so twice now in that answer, and then in a previous answer, you said something that really resonates with me. You talked about, sort of giving it over to God and what he wants for you. Right. And then earlier you talked about praying for other people. Yes. Sometimes I think it's so important in both those situations, you're going outside yourself, right? You've talked about it. We have plans, your own story, right? You had plans, you had it all laid out. You knew exactly how it was going to be. And sometimes when you get in those moments where it's a struggle and you're not sure what's going on, sometimes because you're trying to figure it out yourself. And when you can step outside of yourself and put the focus elsewhere, I think that is when we really open ourselves up to really finding out what God is really up to. Because you're not inward focused. You're sort of mindful about what's going on around you.
Yeah, and my thought is, while you were saying that, is the elsewhere is the wilderness part of faith. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. We can't please God if we're doing our plan.
Sure.
And I don't know about any of you guys, and if you are longtime Christians or short-time Christians, and forgive me if you're short-time Christians and you're finding out that some days are harder than others, because a lot of times when you're first a Christian, everything's fun, but you do get to this place where you get in these places where you're between a rock and a hard place, and you're supposed to go against what you would naturally do, and your plan was to go that way, and the place God wants you to do is to go that way. And you're going that way because you know that there's peace over there, but you want to have that away over there. You can't see my hands. You want to have it that way, but you're going that way because God says, and you eventually come back around to this and you realize, oh, I'm so glad that I didn't go that way. That way would have been a huge distraction. So it goes against our will sometimes to wait on God. It goes against our will to lay our plans down, those headshots that you worked hard to make, and you take them into your agent and they say they hate them, and now you have to go have them done again because they don't fit what they want in Atlanta or LA or whatever. And you think you get to that crossroad of anger, you have to just lay it down. It's shake it off. All of that stuff you learned while you were doing your plan applies to what's ahead for you. It always applies to what's ahead. It's never wasted. Even the mistakes you make are not wasted. Because Joseph probably never again, after being thrown in that pit, while he was sitting there thinking, wondering if he was going to starve to death, he probably thought, I'm never going to brag again. I mean, this did not work out well for me. Okay? Right. I'm thinking, you got to think what the guy was thinking when he was sitting there all by himself. Yeah? And that's pretty much what happens when you're stuck in the wilderness. How did I get myself here, God? I thought, and I'm telling you, there's blame shifting that goes on in the wilderness. You blame everyone for throwing you there. And you really kind of got there because God's got a different plan, and you were off the metrics on his plan. And he wanted to get you back because he knew what's inside of you, what is ahead. He knew how he was going to use you. And the only way to stop you from hurting yourself or others, or even just going in the wrong direction, he had to throw you in the pit.
Yeah, no, that's great. Marcus is on. Hello, Marcus. And Marcus, he said, I'm blessed to still be working. Good. That's great. That's awesome to hear. He said, however, my workload has increased to the point where I feel more exhausted than normal when I get home. What advice would you give people who want to use this time wisely, but are struggling with the motivation and the energy to do so?
So if you're working double hours, put that money away. The Lord's got a plan for it, and he's holding it for you. I've talked to Marcus, and I would say it's a blessing, and you embrace the blessing while you're in that season. If you remember what we talked about, Joseph saw that there was 7 years of feast and 7 years of famine coming. And so Joseph in the feast wore himself out getting ready for the famine. Prior to this, I was working, and we all experienced a lot of work and a lot of income coming up. I had no idea that this was coming towards us. I had 2.5 months of a lot of work and a lot of money that I dumped into debts and different things and put savings away. I had no idea I was coming to a place where I was going to be sitting talking to you guys. So Marcus, your time is now. Save that money, work, enjoy it, embrace it, and don't worry about it. You can learn stuff after the feasting is done. You will have a famine, and God will get you ready for that. I think that's good. I talked to Marcus. I think God's getting him ready for what's next.
That's great.
Take that blessing. I mean, take it, no matter how it's dished out to you, take it. Take it and say, God's got this now. I've got to take it while it's here. And that's how I did that. It was 14 weeks. We were working. I didn't do anything related to my craft. I did everything related to preparing for right now. And that is a snapshot of how God has done it over and over and over again. His routine doesn't change, you guys, whether you're famining or you're feasting. If you're preparing for what's next, he's preparing you. And if you are obedient and you don't get mad at him for not having you where everyone else is, or whatever goes on in our heads, because we get jealous and how come I can't stay at home? I've had people say that to me. I'm like, you don't want to, believe me. But the truth is that he's got me here to do these things now, to create content, which I've been doing. All these plans I've had set aside because I was in feasting time. So it goes from feast to famine, and in famine, what are you going to do with the time? I'm going to prepare for the next feast. It goes back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah. So Maddie followed up. She's a singer-songwriter.
Okay.
Just to give some context. And she feels like she struggles with the dream mode thing, and her mind just tends to wander.
Right.
She feels like she's just in a spiritual battle, is to her words. She said, I'm definitely in a spiritual battle. The enemy uses my tendency to procrastinate to convince me that it won't happen. And I think that resonates. I'll tell you what, there's going to be people, Maddie, that are going to be watching this video for who knows how long to come, that is going to resonate with. And I think personally, and I'll let you follow up, Lynda, anytime you feel like you're in the middle of a spiritual battle, it's because God is about to do something amazing with you.
Absolutely.
And through you. And the devil knows it, and he wants to keep it from happening. That's it. There's always that, there's that saying that, everything's great when you're not doing a whole lot for God, because the devil has you right where he wants you. Yep. And if you feel like you're in the middle of a spiritual battle, it's because God's got something really good for you. So, I mean, that's just my 2 cents. And Lynda, if you want to kind of expand on that.
Maddie, if I could take my camera and turn it all around my apartment, you would see words on the walls here, words that are encouraging. I have one, and I'm going to stop and get it right now. Hang on. All right. Let's see, am I getting it? There you go. Never, never, never give up. Girl, that's for you. I have that on the walls. I have encouragement words all over the walls, because words speak to me, because I'm more of a linguistic than I am anything else. And those words lift me up. And when you're feeling that spiritual warfare, I read the Bible and walked the floors. And I just let the warfare happen, because sometimes that's also a call to intercession. And Josh is right. the spiritual warfare that you feel and Satan whispering in your ear and saying, oh, you're not going to go anywhere. You're not going to be anyone. You're just wasting your time. Does that sound familiar? You're not wasting your time. You just have to go, okay, get behind me, Satan. I'm called to do this. And sometimes, even though I'm feeling the angst in my heart and I'm feeling that discouragement and I'm agreeing with the enemy, I stand up and I take that guitar out and I start worshiping the Lord. I just do. Or I go out and take a walk. And I mean, I don't know if you're in a city where you can without somebody telling you to wear a mask or not, but I'll go take a walk. I'll change my environment. But the Lord has his thumb on you, and almost every time he's holding you down, almost every time he's held me down, just like Josh said, and I'm in this huge battle, and it's me versus everybody. And the Lord says, please just give this to me. Give it to me. What is it that you want? I want to bless you, God. I want to be in your will. I want to follow you. I want to serve you. As soon as I start going in that direction, I start to break, and that spiritual stronghold goes away. And then I will also suggest that maybe you get a couple friends to pray with you. But there are some things, and I was speaking to someone the other day who's an amazing piano player, and he could not get himself out of the depression funk. And he was waiting for people to pray for him, to pray it away. And what I learned from that depression funk, and I thought about it after we were done talking, is there's things that we have to do to meet God where it is. And if you're struggling with depression, then you need to go talk to someone, and there are resources out there. If you're struggling with that spiritual battle, get somebody in to pray over you. And if none of that goes away, then good old fashioned, open that Bible up and walk the floors. Read it out loud until you can't stop reading, until you fall asleep doing it. That is how I was and fasting is also very helpful. Between the fasting, the praying, the not talking much about it to accept who God brought into my life, and the worshiping, it took me to the next level. And pretty soon everything just starts happening. All of a sudden one thing happens and another, and you don't need to do it anymore, but you may have to do it for a while. It's not over, Maddie. Okay. It's just beginning, girl. You just have to get through the muddy part of it. Okay.
That's great. Thank you so much for expanding on that. I want to hit a couple of sort of their common questions that I think many people will benefit from. I mean, you, with the experience that you have, again, both sides of the camera and on stage, and, it's just, there's a lot that could be learned from you. And I think there's a lot of people that have these general questions, and I would like to just we can go over them quickly. The first one: how does somebody know that they are called to be performers? Like, that's really their calling. They're called to it. How does somebody know that?
First of all, I think it comes easy to you. It's not work. It's not, like Maddie said, a dream, or a pipe dream is what I think our parents used to call it, pipe dreams. And those were dreams that's not happening. They used to say, no, that's not happening to you. It's like, if I wanted to be at this time in my life, if I wanted to be a female wrestler, that's not happening. Okay. That's a pipe dream, but I'm dreaming it, and I don't have giftings for wrestling. I don't really have the body type for it. That's a dream that's not going to happen. I could learn wrestling, and I could exercise in it, and I could probably hang out with wrestlers and maybe watch them and go to a wrestling match and really enjoy it, but I'm not going to be an all-star wrestler. It's Shakespeare said at one time, to thine own self be true. And knowing what that truth is only between you and God. If you feel called to be a performer, you will walk towards it. It will come to you. I believe of full-time performers. I have friends. I started out in school, and there were all of us. We were in professional acting training in college. I was in one of those BFA, MFA things. And so we all thought we were going to be movie stars or stage actors in Broadway and things like that. And they were training us to be like we were going to be. They totally believed that we would. We got into this and we're going to do it. But they also talked to us about stuff that I'm going to say right now. And I have retold this story many times. And that as you sojourn, you will find that there are better fits along the way for you, that you absolutely do not have to be a Broadway performer, that maybe you don't have that high kick that you need to dance on Broadway, but you do have dance experience enough to dance off Broadway, or to train Broadway dancers, or to go out and dance in a dance company and tour through Europe. It just may not be that you're called to that specific spot. And God, on your journey, as you discover what you can and can't do, and you look around you and you see where the talent is, you make that decision. Now, those people, and I have friends who started out with me, those people who did make or do work more than I do. And if you're working as an actress, you know, you have your friends who are working all the time, and you have your friends who work once in a while and think that you're working all the time. And you have those people that are not working and they show up and act like they are. God has called us all and has a particular place for each one of us. And that place is led by our steps. The Bible says the steps of the righteous person is ordered of the Lord. We are ordered to be a leading lady on a Broadway stage. We are ordered to be in Hollywood, and just happen to be at the audition, and the producers just happen to like you, and you just happen to be at this party, and suddenly you're propelling forward. That's all part of our walk with God. Now, on the flip side, those of you who have all that talent and you have the looks and the charm and whatever it is that it takes to make it in Hollywood, if you don't take the risk to go out there and you know you have the talent, I'm not talking about the dream like Maddie said, the dream or the pipe dream. I'm talking about you've got it going on. But if you don't go, okay, then you may be missing out on God's opportunity for you, your perfect opportunity for you. It's really up to us. And you have to take that risk. And you don't know until you step out of the boat, like Peter did. He didn't know. Was it Peter? Yes, Peter. Was it? Yeah, Peter stepped out of the boat to walk on water. He would not have found out if he could walk on water if he stayed in the boat. So sometimes you have to go to Hollywood to find out that you're not supposed to be in Hollywood. Sometimes you have to do it to find out, okay, this isn't for me. I would rather be doing this, this, and this. I enjoy this more. Sometimes you have to take those risks. Do not let other people tell you that you don't have to take the risk, that you'll never make it. If you feel led to do it, get in the car, drive out there. I wouldn't advise doing it now, but get out there, and in his timing, he will bring you to that discussion with yourself of another time out, doing something else. In another time out, he'll say, okay, so have you learned everything you need to learn in Hollywood? Yes. Go home. He'll do it, guys. It's not failure. It's part of God helping you find your way and find where you belong in the arts community. I love the arts. I decided 2 or 3 years out of college, after finishing my BFA, that I wasn't going to fit in an office setting unless it was a creative office setting. I was not going to be answering phones in any bank. That wasn't happening. I just was not wired to do that. And so I began the journey of accepting the fact that I was going to have to wait tables and I was going to do other things in order that I could do the thing I loved, which is be creative. And I wasn't going to let any job or person or anything stop me. And it has been a rocky road, you guys, but I wouldn't have changed it for anything. My family thinks I should have been a doctor. Pediatrician is what we were going for. And I love kids and I loved medicine, but I was terrible at math and science. So why would I be that? So if you're a singer or you're not a singer, but you want to be a singer, don't be going out and singing. You can play in your guitar in the middle of the night or even for church or a small group or whatever. But really, you have to be realistic with what you can do. Now, can you excel to go and become that? Absolutely. Absolutely. But are you ready to do the time? Because it takes time to develop to become those artists. Some of those artists, I've seen them with kids that I've trained. They're amazing. They have gifts that I never had. They're just natural. You just give it to them. They don't have to work at it. They've got it. Those are the kids that need to go to Hollywood. It's easy for them. And they usually end up growing up and doing okay. Even the adults that are that way. I hope that helps.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I mean, you really You really touched on a couple of the other just common questions that people have on, what are the traits that it takes? And you touched a little bit in that. You talked a little bit about when do you go, or how do you know, is there even a right time? Some
Yeah.
people just, they, like you said, they never go. You gotta get out of the boat to see. I mean,
Yep.
as a musician, I did the same thing. And you get to a point where you just have to go and
Right.
see what happens. And, it's a co-laboring thing. We're in this with God together. It's not he's just going to miraculously lay it all out for you and that's it, right?
Yeah,
It's
no.
something, there's action that has to take place on our part.
It's a team effort.
Yeah, no doubt. Absolutely. And I think we did have Jacqueline mentioned. She said thanked you for your answer. It was fantastic. She mentioned that she's taking her old monologues and she started putting them on TikTok. She wanted to know what you thought about that. So I think probably just you could address social media in general.
Yeah. I think I just took a class, actually 2 classes, and one was by an acting teacher who is also an actress. She has like 2 websites, and one was by someone who is coaching actors who used to be a casting director. And both of them, not knowing each other, said the same thing. Do it. Get yourself out there. Do it. And that there are no rules right now. First of all, there's no production right now. So the casting people and the producers are looking. And secondly, it shows what you can do. I would also, though, be careful what you put out there, because remember, once it's out there, it's out there. So if you're taking hardy risks and content, make sure that the content is something that you'll be proud of in 10 years, if that makes sense. I have clips and stuff of things I've done in the past, and I've managed to keep away from the racy stuff. Thank goodness I made good choices, but then I did get saved later. But you got to be careful what you send out. But yeah, I don't think there's a problem with it personally. Now, other people, and both groups did say this too, that there are really no rules right now, but the rules do change rapidly. So you have to keep your ear out to make sure that it's cool.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's great advice. That's really good. And then we're kind of running out of time here, but I have one more. Maria Silva's on, and she says, she's asking, what separates you as a follower of Christ in the entertainment industry than somebody who isn't? What is the difference between the world system and the kingdom system that you apply as an actor?
I know Maria well. I absolutely. Hello, Maria. My difference is that I serve God in my choices as an actress, which steers whether I go to Hollywood or not. It steers whether I stay at my local church and I volunteer to run the sound. It steers my time at Disney and how much time I spend at Disney. It steers my time on set and what sets I end up on. And so for all of you, and Maria was good in steering us this way, it's all about Jesus, you guys. It's about him and your submission to him, and you're pushing through your stuff to get to that place where you go, God, am I supposed to be in Hollywood? Am I supposed to be in Nashville? Am I supposed to be in New York? Lead me there and show me that path. And if he wants you there, girls and guys, you will be on the next train, even in the pandemic. Even with all this stuff going on. I cannot tell you how many places I've been where people told me not to go. Don't go now. It's not wise. Don't do it. And the Lord had me on a train. I was headed to Jerusalem a few years ago during the pre-Gulf War. Empty plane. Pre-Gulf War. I flew to Jerusalem. There were 6 people on this big jumbo jet. Me and 6 other people. I didn't know who they were. I was able to stretch out. And when I got there, it was the most significant time with Christ ever. It set the way for me in directing projects, and it just really set me ahead. So to answer the question, if God wants you somewhere, you're going. You're flying on a plane and you're there, and he's opened the doors. He's providing for you. He's making a path.
That's awesome. Great. Well, listen, before we go, I want to give you an opportunity. another thing that you do, which is absolutely amazing, is you have a summer drama camp.
Oh yeah.
And I would
Yeah.
like to give you just a moment to talk a little bit about that. I'm
Okay.
sure everybody would love to know what that's all about.
Yeah, I have a theater camp for kids, and what I do is I take the kids that sometimes don't fit in, the quirky kids, the kids that maybe have speech impediments, the kids that don't have speech impediments, that are really gifted artistically but can't find that channel to be accepted in order so they can develop that talent that they have inside of them. And I have the normal kids who come in, and I've been doing this for years. And in the summers, for 2 weeks, we do a theater camp where we do a musical. Now, this summer was probably going to be different because of the pandemic. This summer, I'm hoping to do maybe more of a film camp, film and media camp for them because the cost and expense. We're also doing free online classes for kids ages 6 to 10 and 11 to 14, actually 14 up to 17 if they want. And those, you can access that through Summer Drama Camp at AOL.com. You can reach out to me. We're doing them twice a week. It's a half hour, and it's really just to kind of get going and do stuff in this, and while we're all sitting at home. And so far, so good. But yeah, that's what we do. And I also coach adults too. But right now, we're focusing on the kids. Thank you.
Awesome. Great. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you everybody who tuned in. And if you're going to watch this at a later time, thank you for tuning in. I'm sure you were happy that you did. I know I'm happy. I got my notes here, and I know everybody else does too. Lynda, thank you so much for taking time to do this. It was really a blessing, and I know a lot of people got a lot out of it. Again, if you want to know more about that summer drama camp, it is summerdramacamp@AOL.com, and I'm sure Lynda would love to hear from you. So thank you everybody again for coming. If this is your first time and this is the first of the Spotlight series that you've got to catch, you can go to shine.us/spotlight and you will find all of the others as well. So thank you, Lynda. Thank you, everybody.
You.
Yep.
Bye, everybody. Remember, you guys, don't give up. Don't give up.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.